Have you ever thought about what makes a thief really scary? Imagine living in a world where some of the most dangerous people in jail have stories that are so scary they are hard to believe. There is a guy with a horrible tattoo on his eye who turned to crime, and a notorious drug lord whose escapes from maximum security prisons look like they belong in a video. These are the 10 most dangerous prisoners in the world. Number 10. Dennis Rader. The BTK Killer bind. Torture. Killed Dennis Rader is notorious for a string of killings that he committed between 1974 and 1991. Among the 10 victims of Rader's crimes were 6 and a family of 4 women. His method of operation was to bind, torture, and murder his victims. The case gained popularity because Rader wrote letters and mailed unsettling parcels to law enforcement and the media. The BTK case remained unsolved after Rader's last murder in 1991 until 2004, when he started corresponding with the media again and was apprehended in 2005. He is presently serving 10 life sentences that are consecutive. The violent behavior of Rader is a clear illustration of how psychological manipulations and the need for attention may fuel such behavior, as well as the long-lasting effects these criminals have on society. Number 9. Charles Bronson. Not to be mistaken with the American actor. British criminal Charles Bronson, born Michael Gordon Peterson, was well known for his aggressive actions while incarcerated. When Bronson was younger, he started engaging in violent and robbery crimes. His bare-knuckle fighting record momentarily brought him prominence in 1987, but his ongoing aggression in prison had a greater influence. Bronson has been detained since 1993 as a result of numerous violent episodes involving both prison employees and other prisoners. His appeals for increased freedom inside the jail system have not been successful. The story of Bronson serves as an example of the continuous difficulties in handling violent inmates in correctional facilities, as well as the difficulties in handling repeat criminals. Number 8. Joaquín Guzman El Chapo. One of the most notorious drug lords in history, Joaquín El Chapo Guzmán is most known for being the head of the Sinaloa cartel. Guzmán started his criminal career in the 1970s, and it lasted for several decades. He engaged in violence, drug trafficking, and heavy usage of hitmen. Guzmán's dangerousness and resourcefulness are demonstrated by his abilities to get out of maximum security prisons in 2001 and 2015, only to be apprehended again in 2016. In 2017, after being extradited to the United States, he was found guilty of several offenses, including money laundering and narcotics trafficking. Guzmán is presently incarcerated in a Colorado Supermax facility for 30 years in addition to his life sentence. His story serves as a reminder of the difficulties in fighting organized crime and the widespread effects that drug trafficking has on communities around the world. Number 7. David Burkowitz. Between 1975 and 1977, David Burkowitz, also referred to as the Son of Sam, terrorized New York City with a string of attacks that resulted in 6 fatalities and 11 injuries. At first, Burkowitz became well known for his letters he wrote to the police and media, referring to himself as the Son of Sam. His acts were characterized by their savagery and randomness, which spread terror across the community. It took a long investigation, but in 1977 Burkowitz was ultimately captured. After entering a guilty plea to the killings, he was given 6 consecutive life sentences. Even though Burkowitz has since become a Christian, his prior transgressions still have a lasting impact on his life. His story serves as a sobering reminder of the long-lasting effects that violent crimes have on both victims and offenders. Number 6. Maudsley Robert. Robert Maudsley, a British serial murderer, is notorious for his crimes against other convicted criminals. Maudsley faced charges for 3 homicides and 1 manslaughter between 1974 and 1978. Among his victims were 2 other prisoners at Wakefield Prison, a patient at a mental health facility, and a man who had approached him with a sexual proposition. Maudsley said that he killed people who he thought should be punished, especially those who had committed sexual offenses. Maudsley was placed in solitary confinement in 1983 as a result of his aggressive actions while incarcerated. He made an effort to obtain some freedom while inside, but his demands were turned down. Maudsley is still housed in solitary confinement, and his story serves as an example of the difficulties in handling dangerous criminals inside the jail system. Number 5. Charles Cullen. The American nurse Charles Cullen is a prime example of the angel of death, a particularly disturbing kind of criminal. Cullen was found guilty of killing 29 patients during the course of his 16-year career while working in a number of hospitals in Pennsylvania and New Jersey. Frequently disguising himself as a medical professional, Cullen gave his victims fatal dosages of medicine. Following his 2003 arrest, he was found guilty and given 18 consecutive life sentences without the chance of release. Although not all of Cullen's victims were terminally sick, his acts were driven by a desire to put an end to what he perceived to be his patients' suffering. His story serves as a reminder of the great harm that people in positions of trust and authority are capable of causing. Number 4. Joanna Dennehy. A British serial murderer, Joanna Dennehy is among the most renowned offenders in recent British history after committing a string of horrific killings in 2013. In the course of Dennehy's murderous rampage, 3 men in Cambridgeshire and 2 more, one of whom survived, were stabbed. She had planned to murder 9 people in total, and her killings were premeditated. Dennehy's actions while incarcerated further proved how dangerous she was. She threatened to kill other inmates and had an escape plot that included disfiguring a guard. As a result, she was moved to a high-security facility. The case of Dennehy is a horrifying illustration of how even planned acts of violence can turn violent into unexpectedly severe situations. Number 3. Surinder Kohli. India and the world were outraged by the criminal deeds of Surinder Kohli in 2005 and 2006. Noida emerged as a hub for instances involving missing children, which the local authorities had previously disregarded. In 2006, Kohli and businessman Maninder Singh Pandar were apprehended on suspicion of killing a prostitute. As a result of the discovery of multiple bodies during investigations, Kohli confessed to multiple killings. His sentence is still pending. Kohli was found guilty on 13 charges of murder and given the death penalty. Despite being initially charged, Pandar was eventually found not to have been directly involved in the killings. Yet, he was sentenced to 7 years in prison for luring prostitutes. Kohli's case serves as a warning about the perils of criminal neglect and the atrocities that can occur when these situations go uninvestigated. Number 2. Joseph James DAngelo. The notorious Golden State Killer, Joseph James DAngelo, is a perfect example of a criminal whose acts cross several lines in violent crime. Between 1974 and 1986, DAngelo committed 13 murders, more than 50 sexual assaults, and perhaps 120 burglaries during his reign of terror. His meticulous approach to illicit activity was characterized by his unsettling ability to avoid capture. After 1986, the case became cold, until developments in genetic genealogy resulted in DAngelo's 72-year-old arrest in 2018. DAngelo had a brief career as a police officer before being found guilty on 13 charges of kidnapping and 13 counts of first-degree murder. Right now, he is serving a life sentence without the possibility of release. His story serves as a sobering reminder of the extent some criminals would go to avoid punishment and the perseverance needed to hold them accountable. Number 1. Jason Barnum. Eyeball, sometimes known as Jason Barnum, is a unique character only by virtue of his appearance. Barnum's appearance is almost as unsettling as his criminal history, with a hideous eyeball tattooed on his forehead and a black tattoo covering his right eye. In 2012, his illicit activities gained attention after he was discovered hiding in a hotel and shot one police officer, injuring the other. In 2015, Barnum was captured and given a 22-year prison sentence. He was accused of auto theft, burglary, and attempted murder. Barnum stated that his addiction to illegal narcotics was the driving force behind his criminal activity. He stands out among dangerous criminals due to his unusual appearance and aggressive behavior. Some of the world's most dangerous prisoners are represented by the people this video highlights. Each of them has performed horrible deeds that have affected their victims and society at large for a long time. These individuals, who range from infamous criminals to serial killers, highlight the difficulties in handling severe violence as well as the difficulties facing the legal system and law enforcement. Knowing their stories makes it easier to understand the nature of criminal activity and the continuous work needed to control and stop these threats to society. Don't miss out on more gripping stories like this. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Stay tuned for more deep dives into the world of crime and the most dangerous figures behind bars.